and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2023-24 season. My name is Dan and it's time for our Game Week 11 episode of Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid, the series where we pick some of the players from the biggest transfer trends and basically decide if they're good or bad or not. But guys, hopefully you enjoy this one. If you do, drop a like, do subscribe if you're new around here. Let's have a quick look at the rules of the video. So buys are players you probably don't have but should consider bringing in, sells are players you probably have but should consider removing, keeps are players you might be thinking about removing, I think you should keep them, and avoids are players that are pretty hyped up right now, loads of people bringing them in, but I do think they are potential traps that should be avoided, and we've got a few controversial ones in the avoid category today. But before we do that, let's have a look at our results from last week. Okay, so the immediate one game week term results from last week's predictions. I do want to emphasize, by the way, on this, guys. When I say, you know, buy a certain player, it's not just for one game week. So I would prefer to, judge some of these categories, buys on a longer basis sometimes, but it's just so varied. This whole section is only in here because you guys seem to like it. It holds me accountable to an extent, and honestly, just take it with a pinch of salt, because some of the buys, like last game week, the buys, Areola, Gabriel, Saka, and Watkins, you know, just because they didn't work out necessarily for game week 10, it doesn't mean they're not going to work out in the future. And I obviously have confidence in the likes of Watkins and Saka to score much more points in future game weeks, that's for sure. So don't worry too much about that if you did buy any of those players. But I think in general, we did okay with the predictions on a one game week basis. The one player that sticks out to me the most is probably going to be Mbeumo, because he scored 13 points. And I did say he was a don't buy, don't sell kind of player, but in hindsight, maybe he was a buy player. So I think we do need to revisit Mbeumo for sure, because I think I have got that one wrong in the avoid category. So apologies for that one. I still probably would have never bought him myself, but maybe I was a little bit harsh putting him in the avoid category. But at least we got the Haaland keep right. We'll put it that way. But yeah, hopefully a little bit better this week, but not too bad. So starting off with some buys, we're going to have some defensive players. And we've got Johnston first of all. He would be the goalkeeper I would be going for right now. If I needed a new goalkeeper, Johnston at 4.5 would be my pick. Only 0.2 more expensive than Areola at this point. We're seeing the likes of Areola and Turner increase in price, which means your 4.5 million goalkeepers are, you know, in comparison, becoming better and better value for money. So Johnson at 4.5, definitely think he's decent value for money, makes a lot of saves. He always has the potential for bonus points because Crystal Palace don't score too many goals. So when you got these low scoring games, when Crystal Palace do keep a clean sheet, the bonus points are naturally going to fall to the goalkeepers and the defenders, because there's not really too many attackers getting attacking returns and picking up bonus points through attacking actions. And Johnston, when he's making saves as well, that really helps out for the bonus points as well. So yeah, I do imagine that he is going to get some clean sheets and some bonus points in this upcoming run of fixtures. We know Crystal Palace are pretty good for clean sheets in general, so let's see how he does. Like him as a goalkeeper pick. Tsimikas is going to be my defender buy for this week. He's probably the only defender that really excites me at all right now. It's not that I don't like defenders in general in FPL, but there's not that many clean sheets to go around. Even the attacking returns, there's not really too many defenders that are getting attacking returns at the moment either, and they are coming up a little bit randomly, so it's kind of hard to pick out players. But with Tsimikas, what we have is a pretty cheap defender playing for a top Liverpool team, a Liverpool team that is improving defensively, and we've got some good fixtures coming up as well. So overall, I think Tsimikas is a very sensible and solid pick to go for right now, certainly for the 9 or 10 weeks until Robertson is back in the Liverpool team. But for now, Tsimikas looking like a very, very good buy. And I'm going to put Bryan Mbeumo in the buy category this week. I think particularly now we've got the Chelsea game out the way, which I did really foresee as being a difficult fixture. Chelsea have been putting up such good defensive numbers that I kind of just assumed that any player would struggle against them. Mbeumo, on the other hand, is obviously a player that is coming back into form. It's such a strange one because he started the season in such good form, dropped off for a little while. I know a lot of people sold him at that point, and now he's kind of coming back into form again. And I think at a certain point, you do have to say form over fixtures. When a player is in a really, really hot vein of form, you've got to pick them. You've got to have them. It doesn't matter who they're playing against. The best players in the best form will score against anyone. We know that with attacking players in particular, you don't need to look at their fixtures too much. But even so, we've got West Ham and Luton in the next 4. After the Arsenal game, the fixtures get a lot better for Brentford as well. We just need to get this Liverpool and Arsenal fixtures out the way. But honestly, the West Ham at home fixture is a really nice fixture as well, and I think Mbeumo will do well in that one particular fixture. So I would say if you are planning on buying him, you kind of have 2 jumping on points. You've got now Game Week 11, or you can wait, hold through 12 and 13, avoid him from those 2 fixtures, and then come back in Game Week 14 and buy Brian at that point as well. So there's 2 jumping on points. Now is one of them, and hopefully he is going to be able to, you know, continue to score goals, get assists, and we have penalties as well, which is always going to enable you to get that lucky goal even in the more difficult fixtures. And we know Arsenal do like to concede a penalty, so you never know, that could happen there as well. And for my forward buy, Darwin is the player I'm looking at the most at the moment. He is the player who stands out to me the most. I think this is a really nice high upside pick. He looks just so good at the moment. I've been really, really impressed with him, and I've been saying this all season. I'll continue to say it, but when Darwin plays, when Darwin starts, when Darwin is on the pitch, he is a phenomenal FPL asset, and he puts up better numbers than pretty much anyone else, any other attacker in the Premier League per 90 minutes. Well, the problem is he doesn't always get those 90 minutes, which is the difficulty with him. But if you can, you know, try and take a stab with him and go for a Luton game, it's a really nice fixture. I think Darwin could be the highest scoring player in that game. I would back Darwin to score more points than the likes of Salah even in this game, because you know, Darwin does better from open play, and he does better when he's on the pitch. Salah is obviously far safer because he's a 90-minute man. You know, he's super nailed on, and he's going to be on penalties as well. But Darwin just has this X factor that I think is just incredible when he's on the pitch. So I would be willing to take that risk. Luton and Brentford, he should play both of those games. I think he'll start both of those games. I think he is the first choice striker for Liverpool at the moment. I think Liverpool fans will agree with me on that one. For the Man City game, it's a little bit more difficult to say because it's immediately after an international break, and we know what Klopp is like with his South American players after the international break. So it could be rotation there, but then again, it's a tough fixture against City. Maybe Darwin is going to be needed in that fixture. And after that, we've got no more international breaks until next year. So we've got quite a long time for international breaks there. So we should hopefully see Darwin play it more regularly. And we know he deserves it. He's been doing super well. So Darwin is going to be my forward buy for this game week if you are looking for a new forward for your FPL team. I'm going to stick Nick Pope in the sell category. I think this is a good moment to sell him if you are looking to kind of reinvest your money elsewhere, because at 5.5 million, I don't think it's good value for money, really. You can get in on the Newcastle defence in much cheaper ways and you know, get access to bonus points and attacking returns as well, potentially, by not going for Pope. I just think he's just too much money. When we've got the likes of Areola and we've got the likes of Johnston and players like that, even Raya at Arsenal, they are much, much cheaper. They can free up a lot of money to help you invest in other areas of your pitch. I would be doing that personally. So yeah, if you're looking to free up some budget and you have Pope in your team, a pretty easy sell for me. Moving him down to Johnston frees up $1 million, which I know could go a long way in helping you guys improve your, particularly your midfield and attack, because there's a lot of expensive players we're looking at the moment, isn't there? So Pope doesn't really have a place for me in FPL right now. For a defensive sell, we're going to have Botman. Yeah, it seems like there has been some bad news in terms of his injury return schedule. He's going to be out for a little while longer than expected, and there's actually no return date set at this point, so he could be out for weeks. More, I don't know. It's one of those really, really difficult ones, unfortunately, for Botman. So, yeah, he could be out for a while. Is that going to make Newcastle's defence worse? Possibly, but certainly I wouldn't be looking to hold on to Botman any further. But hopefully he's going to have a speedy recovery. But in terms of FPL, just be a player that we would be looking to get rid of. But on this note, it should mean that certainly in the short term, Lascelles at 4 million is definitely a worthwhile pick. I think he is going to be providing a little bit more value than we potentially expected. We did think Botman would be back by around this time, maybe even back before this time, but it's not happened. So Lascelles maybe could be a nice 4 million defender just to cover you in certain situations. And when you're done with Lascelles and Botman is back in the team, he can just stay on the bench, I guess, but certainly in the short term could be super useful. But yeah, Botman, going to be a sell. Ward-Prowse is also going to be a sell because he's playing as a defensive midfielder now, unfortunately. And I know people like Ward-Prowse for his set pieces, but I think another appeal of Ward-Prowse was the fact that he was playing pretty high up the pitch. Then we saw Ward-Prowse kind of drop in a little bit deeper, and Thomas Soucek moved into the central attacking midfield position, and Ward-Prowse played in defensive midfield. Last game, we saw Mohamed Kudus play as the attacking midfielder, kind of a replacement as an attacking midfielder there, with Soucek dropping to the bench, and obviously Paqueta is in those positions as well. And Ward-Prowse, once again, playing very deep, playing as defensive midfielder. So I know it looked like Ward-Prowse was going to be a really good pick, set pieces, playing as super attacking areas in and around the box, but it just seems like he is kind of now set as a much deeper player in the West Ham team. So you're not going to get so many open play contributions. Of course, he's not on penalties either, so you really are depending on random free kick goals and random kind of corner assists as well, which you can't really predict. It's not a very reliable way of getting FPL points, unfortunately. Not quite as useful as something like penalties or something like that, I guess. So yeah, Ward-Prowse I would be looking to sell and replace, because at 6.2 million, he's not exactly the cheapest player either. Pretty cheap, but we're getting a lot of midfielders looking good at those cheaper prices as well. And I'm going to say sell Isak. I do think he is set to return like reasonably soon, but aside from that Bournemouth fixture, the fixtures don't look great in general, so I think this is a good time to hop off him. I don't know if he's going to be available for that Bournemouth game. I don't think he will be for the Arsenal game. After that, Chelsea and Manchester United. So I think the longer you hold on to Isak, the more opportunities you are wasting, where you could have, you know, a Watkins or a Darwin or an Alvarez or someone like that who is going to be able to score you points during this time, during this tough run of fixtures. You know, even when Isak is back, he's never nailed on because of the Wilson situation and the constant rotation between these two players. Busy fixture schedule for Newcastle United. So in general, just going to be a sell for me. Deal with the headache, get rid of it, and move to a more reliable forward like Darwin. Yeah, I can see the irony there. Don't worry about that. Keep Onana. If you've held onto him this long, I would not be looking to sell him now. I just think it would probably be a waste of a transfer. He's not that expensive at 4.8 million, so it's not like you could free up a huge amount of budget unless you desperately need it. Then fair enough, I can understand that. But yeah, in general, the other goalkeepers you'd probably be looking to go for, Johnston, Areola, I'm not sure they are particularly more reliable than Onana right now. I think Onana's actually shown some positive moments and positive signs recently as an individual player. So yeah, I would be more than happy to keep him through these three fixtures that on paper look really good. Good chance of clean sheets. Certainly just as good chance of clean sheets as, you know, the likes of, you know, like Johnston and Areola, for example, how likely they are to get clean sheets. So yes, Man United are not going to play Man City every game week, so let's see what they can do up next. And I'm going to put Gabriel in keep, and this is one of those picks where I will screw myself over next game week, because next game week, it's very likely that I'll be making this video and Gabriel would have blanked against Newcastle, because Newcastle are a very tough team. So yeah, when I say keep Gabriel, I don't mean keep him because Newcastle is a fantastic fixture. I mean keep him because I know a lot of people are panicking that Gabriel is now going to be permanently dropped from the Arsenal team. And I can tell you that I really, really strongly disagree with this. I've been wrong in the past about this one. So yeah, if I'm wrong again, fair enough. But as an Arsenal fan, as someone who does follow Arsenal, I'm not worried about Gabriel's rotation. I think he is the main man. I think he starts against Newcastle. I think he starts pretty much every game for Arsenal. Yes, we're going to get the occasional rotation, but I think we'll get the occasional rotation for any player, particularly in those busy schedules. Obviously, Gabriel had a very busy international break as well, has not had a rest since the first couple of game weeks of the season, has been playing game after game after game. It's not a surprise that a few key players were rested ahead of a really, really favourable fixture against Sheffield United. We saw Ødegaard being rested, rotated in that fixture as well. I know a lot of people are selling Ødegaard as well, which is, you know, it's fine for different reasons, but again, Ødegaard, this is not a permanent thing. These players have not been dropped permanently. I think they come straight back into the team against Newcastle and beyond. Not worried at all. And a little kind of honourable mention on the defensive keeps. I think Udogie is fine to keep as well. If you really have another defender you really want to bring into your team, fine, sell Udogie, I guess. I guess you could say the same thing about Gabriel, but I think you'll be missing out on a lot of clean sheet points in the near future. But with Udogie, if it's not like an emergency transfer, I don't really think I would make it, to be honest, unless there's someone you desperately want in your team. For midfielders, a lot of people are selling Bowen. Don't think you should do that. There's some amazing fixtures coming up for them. Nottingham Forest are dipping in form. Burnley is a phenomenal fixture for any attacker. And I think Bowen has been doing pretty well in general. Yes, he blanked last game week, and I think a few people who own Bowen were disappointed by that blank. But in general, I would not be worrying about that too much. He looked good in that game. He did have a couple of chances against Everton. And let's remind ourselves that Everton are actually a seriously improved defensive unit. So maybe we should have seen that coming a little bit more than perhaps we did. But still, Bowen, going forward, I think he's still a lovely pick, still putting up really nice numbers, still looking dangerous, still looking like the danger man in a pretty strong and potent West Ham attack. And I think you're going to get some good points from him moving forward. And I will be keeping Alvarez as well, the second most sold forward of the game week. Only Isak is being sold more. So Alvarez is one of the most sold fit players right now. maybe because he blanked last game week, you can't get a return from Alvarez every game week, but it seems a little bit crazy to sell a top attacker ahead of a game against Bournemouth at home. Bournemouth at home, one of the best fixtures you can have as an FPL asset, as an attacker. So do think that he's definitely going to have a chance for attacking returns in this game. And I think, you know, people might want to move him to Watkins or Darwin maybe, but I don't think it's a priority move. I think you're absolutely fine to keep Alvarez for the Bournemouth game at least. And then perhaps after that, we can look at moving him on with that slightly more difficult run of games for Manchester City. But for the Bournemouth at home game, I would be really, really worried about selling Alvarez. Avoid Turner. Yeah, I'm going to say avoid Turner. 4.1 million goalkeeper. A lot of people bringing him in as their backup goalkeeper. I don't even know if I would do that anymore. I think if you've got an Areola or a Johnston or a Raya or whoever else, you're fine to just stick with one goalkeeper for the time. Turner at 4.1 million. You know, he's no longer a 4 million goalkeeper. You can take a 3.9 million goalkeeper, just stick him on the bench and bank the 0.2. That is what I would do personally. I am also a little bit worried about Turner potentially beginning to start his rotation with Vlachodimos, who has obviously been brought into Nottingham Forest to potentially be the #1 goalkeeper. It was going to happen eventually. We kind of knew that it was going to happen at some point or another. I think we are getting closer to that time. I think the mistake against Liverpool, I know it was a bit of a freak thing, but the mistake against Liverpool from Turner might just be the excuse the manager needs to try out the other goalkeeper. So, yeah, I'm not 100% convinced by Turner long term. I think at 4.1 million, you're probably going to bench him every week anyway, and, you know, just get a 3.9 instead. That's kind of what I would recommend there. And Pinnock, obviously, he is the player of the week, the defender of the week who scored a random goal. They will score a few of these per season, but the week after a defender gets a goal and a clean sheet, everyone rushes to buy them without really thinking, is this likely to happen again? Because I look at these next 3 fixtures, and I have to admit, I don't like the look of the clean sheet potential for Brentford over the next 3. West Ham, Liverpool and Arsenal. After that, we do have Luton. I think from then on, you could potentially go for a Brentford defender. But be aware that Brentford do blank in game week 19, I believe. So you've got to be a little bit careful with bringing in too many Brentford players. And I would be more inclined to save a Brentford slot in your team for a player like Brian and Bumo. So just be aware of that one. Difficult fixtures in the next 3, and then we've got a blank coming up as well. Do we really need a Pinnock in our team? I don't think we do right now. Don't think you're going to play him. Even if you had him, you probably bench him. So, yeah, goals are not going to happen every week. Clean sheets are going to be tough in the next 3. Just a straight up avoid for me. Douglas Luiz is, I'm going to put down as an avoid, but I do have to admit to you guys, and for the audio listeners, I'm sure you guys will appreciate this. Those who don't watch the videos and just go straight to the comment section, scroll through the video and go to the comment section, you're probably going to be like, Douglas Luiz, why do you hate Douglas Luiz? I don't, really. I'll just look through all of the most popular transfers in terms of midfielders, and I picked out Douglas Luiz as the one I liked the least, basically, because that's what this video is about. It'd be very easy for me to say, oh, you know, don't buy N'Golo Kante. He's a defensive midfielder who doesn't even play in the Premier League anymore. If I could do that every week, you know, 1, it would be a really boring video, and 2, it would just be far too easy. So, we're going to go for Douglas Luiz as an avoid. He's a soft avoid. He's not a player I would be looking to buy him personally, which is why he goes in this section. Yes, he has got a couple of goals recently and an assist, but looking through the numbers, you know, 2 of these goals are from penalties. His non-penalty expected goals over the last 5 game weeks is around 0.6, which isn't super high. His assist last game, it was like a 0.1 expected assist kind of chance there. And when you just watch him play on the field, yes, he's on penalties. You're gonna get lucky with a penalty occasionally. You are gonna get lucky with a set piece very occasionally. We don't see Aston Villa score too many from set pieces, I guess, but you might get lucky occasionally with these, but I don't think the recent results are sustainable, and just because, you know, he's not going to get penalties every week, I don't think it's predictable points, and I like to pick players where I can predict when the points are going to come. Douglas Luiz doesn't really fit that category, and from open play, he's just a defensive midfielder. That's his job. You know, he's a defensive guy, and in general, we don't really pick defensive midfielders in FPL. Final point really is for the next 4 game weeks, that's pretty much it in terms of good fixtures for Aston Villa. They've got Nottingham Forest, Fulham and Bournemouth, and then things do get a little bit tougher. We've got starting with Spurs, I guess. So the slightly worse fixtures are upcoming as well. So I don't even think he is really a long-term pick either. So he's kind of a little bit short-term. You've got to get a little bit lucky to get the right results from him. Just not really my kind of pick. But if you really like him, go for him. Just not for me. And our final avoid is Eddie Nketiah, the most popular transfer of the game week, but I'm just not seeing it at all. I'm just not seeing it. Obviously, Nketiah did super, super well against Sheffield United, but we do have to remember, put into context, that it was Sheffield United. They are a weaker team in the Premier League. Let's be totally honest about that. And he did score his 3 goals there, but before, and by the way, for the 3 goals, it was a 1.41 XG for those 3 goals. No, it was even less than that. It was like 1.3. I don't know, it was less than that. But I looked kind of, you know, obviously he's got 1.41 expected goals in the last 5 game weeks. So I thought, okay, let's have a look before the Sheffield United game. How much XG does he have in the previous 5 game weeks? So instead of 6 to 10, 5 to 9. And it was around 0.49, I believe. So just under 0.5. So, yeah, if you exclude the Sheffield United game and you look at the 5 fixtures previous to that, his expected goals, how involved he is, how many shots he takes, how, you know, was a lot lower in those kind of more balanced fixtures. He's not going to play Sheffield United every game week. Now, I have to admit to you guys, the Burnley fixture I like at home for Nketiah, but for Newcastle, I don't like it. Newcastle are a super tough defence, and I don't really fancy Nketiah to do too well there. You know, would you buy Saka this game week? If the answer is no, then you probably shouldn't buy Nketiah either this week. And the final thing with Nketiah is that Gabriel Jesus is probably going to be back by around game week 13, which is the Brentford away game. So we've really only got 2 game weeks left of Nketiah being nailed. So it's a really, really tough player to recommend to you guys right now. Super short term, difficult fixture coming up next. Not got a particularly strong history this season of a decent amount of attacking contributions, or a decent amount of points, I guess, is probably more the point. So therefore, has to go down as an avoid for me. I wouldn't be looking to buy him for my FPL team unless the only reason is if I had a super small budget to work with to buy a new striker. If I really needed to buy a super cheap striker for whatever reason, that's the only reason I buy Nketiah. But even then, all you're doing is creating a problem for yourself in a few game weeks, and you're going to have to transfer him back out again anyway. Probably get 2 points, maybe even 1 point against Newcastle. You get the Burnley game, and then you're going to have to transfer him out again. So you're just postponing your problem. Maybe there's someone a little bit more long-term you could go for in the cheap forward slot. So, yeah, controversial. Controversial, I know, but that's what we do in this channel. Not afraid to put my opinions out there, I guess, and try and present an alternative argument, because that's what this video is about. Just providing alternative arguments, really, to some popular players. So one thing I would say before I disappear is that I don't think this week is the best week for making transfers in general, really. Obviously, if you have some, you know, problem areas in your team, make the transfers. But I don't actually think you need to make moves this week if you don't want to. Like, for example, the Brian and Mbumo shout. If you have a midfielder that you hate, then by all means remove him. But if you've got a Mitoma or a Diaby, I would probably stick with them. If you've got a Bowen, I would stick with him. There's a lot of players like Madison. I would keep these players rather than using the transfer to go for Mbumo. So, yeah, that's just an example there. A lot of these transfers that you might be making this week are either going to be luxury or out of necessity. If you don't have, like, an absolutely necessary transfer, don't feel a pressure to make one. I don't think it's a particularly good week for it, but that's all I'm going to say on that one. Thanks so much for watching this video, guys. If you did enjoy, make sure you do drop a like. Do subscribe if you are new around here as well. Check out Fantasy Football Hub, link in the description. And why not check out another video? This is, I believe, the 4th video, including the stream, that we have done for Game Week 11 so far. So we're back on the content grind, and it's only Tuesday, guys. But once again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later, mates.